Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are in the world, and welcome to Kirsty Knits and Sews. My name is Kirsty, and this is my podcast where I talk about all the things that I've been making. And it has been a month since I've recorded a podcast, a regular podcast, and my goodness, I have a lot to share with you today. Over the past few weeks, I've been doing the 12 Cast Ons with Ange from Yarn and Yarns, and so I will link the playlist down below if you've missed that. But that is where I have spent most of my time since I recorded my last podcast, but I have managed to finish quite a few things in, around, through, after those. So I have a lot to share with you today. Also, since we last had a regular episode, I've reached over 1,000 subscribers. So I just want to say thank you for that. If you're new here, you are most very welcome. Thank you for joining me. If you are returning, if you've been here for a long time, I'm so glad to have you here. And as always, I'd love to hear you are returning, what you've been working on, because this is, I love hearing the community side of it, learning about what you've been working on, what you've been finding useful, what you've been finding frustrating with knitting. You can share all of that in the comments below. I love reading them and I love responding and having conversations down there. So welcome. And I do have a giveaway that I will share later on in the episode, so stick around for that. I also have a new method for picking a focus to work on. So with the 12 Cast-Ons, I now have, I think I figured out 37 whips when I recorded my stash stats and plans video. That may have gone down a little bit now. I haven't actually recounted, but I have a new way of picking what I'm going to focus on. So I will share a bit more with that in a minute. And I have knitting, spinning, finishes, and new cast-ons. I have 5 new cast-ons since I finished the 12 cast-ons. Now, the 12 cast-ons is where you start up to 12 projects between the 24th of December and the 31st of January the following year. We are still well within that period. It's not the 31st of January yet. In fact, it is January 28, and it is it early? It's early, I think, 8:28 a.m. This is early for me to record. But the 5 new cast-ons don't count toward the 12 cast-ons because it's more than 12. So that means I've cast on, 17 new things since, oh boy, it's been cast on month, let me tell you. And I'm also going to update a little bit about what I've been doing with Ravelry. I've got another project here that is a finished object that I'm going to frog. So many things to talk about. So let's jump in. My first finish, I don't actually have a photo. Sorry, I don't have here because I've already given them away. And yes, I gave them to my daughter, but they're currently in the dirty clothes washing, so I still didn't pull them out. But I do have a photo that I will put up here, and they are pastel socks. Now, these ones, I have to get out my old knitting journal for this one. These ones I actually finished in December. I did finish them. Oh, did I? No, I didn't. I did finish them in January. Where are we? I did. Oh my goodness. These ones were meant to be, they were meant to be for Christmas. And I had one sock finished for Christmas and I put it in her stocking and said the second one is coming. I didn't quite get it done. But anyway, I then started 12 cast-ons and it got pushed further and further down the list. So it didn't get finished until January, but it was finished January 2nd. They used 36 grams of yarn, and I realized I do have yarn and sock tags in here. I have this little basket. When I finish things, I put my finished objects and my leftover yarn in it so that I can share it with you. And so I believe in here I do have, yes, this is the yarn that I used. It's Grundle Hot Socks. They come in 50-gram balls, so this is only 50 grams. Or it was 50 grams, colour 410. And I've just been calling them pastel rainbow socks. I don't know what the actual colourway, if it has a name other than a number, I don't know what it is because I don't put it on the label. But yeah, so this is what I used. I still have a bit left, and so what I'm going to do with this now, I have a basket full of odds and ends of fingering weight yarn, and when I finish a project, I put it into there waiting to be wound up, and I wind up 2 5-gram balls, one for my cozy memories and one for my I have it here, I'm going to talk about it today. one for my jelly roll blanket. And then whatever I have left over goes back into my scrap basket for use in scrappy socks and scrappy projects. So that's where that's going. But yeah, so that was 36 grams. And I did do a contrast heel for that pair, which means that this probably still has maybe 35, 30, 25 grams maybe. My children have just started playing the piano outside, so I'm just going to pause and go get them to stop that, and I will be back. I'm back. Yeah, sorry, we're homeschooling now, so the kids are home while I'm recording. So there might be a little bit more noise going on, and I said that's fine, a bit of noise is fine, but piano right outside my door is less fine. So that's fine, they've gone to do something different. Okay, so that was my first finish that I've just shared with you. It was 36 grams total, including the contrast heel. So I don't know how much the heel would have taken, but if it was 50 of this minus the heel, I'm not mathing at this time in the morning apparently, but I have leftovers and not just 15 grams. There's a bit more here than the 15. All right. The next thing that I finished is, well, I don't know if it's the next thing or not, but another finish. I have a little rainbow headband. Now, this one, very 80s style, if you want to wear it like that. I will be giving it to my daughter. I spoke about this at some point, and I don't remember when, but I wanted to make a cowl for my children. So I had this yarn already, the rainbow one for my daughter and a similar, like it's got sparkle in it, but it had blue for my son, different blues. And I wanted to start it, so I started it. I wasn't sure about needle size gauge. I was making up the pattern as I went. And when I started it, I hated working with this yarn. And the problem was I was using my chow goose, which have quite pointy needles. And this is a blown yarn, which means that when I put my needle in, blown and fluffy, when I put my needle in, it was kind of getting stuck in the fabric of the yarn. So I think blown yarn, what it does, it's basically a net almost, and then they blow stuff into it. So when I was putting it in, the point was getting stuck in the net part. And so it just was not enjoyable to knit. I've since knit a blown yarn, an entire jumper, in fact, spoiler, of blown yarn that I should go get it. An entire jumper of blown yarn with Addy needles, and Addy needles have a more curved point, and that was delightful. I had absolutely no problems with that. So when I come back to this, I'm going to be doing it in a size that I have Addies for. Anyway, so what I did was, rather than ripping it back, because again it's a fluffy yarn, is I just cast it off and turned it into a headband. My daughter will love it. She'll wear it. It's a little bit of extra warmth if she doesn't need a full beanie. But yes, I didn't want to rip it back. And also it had, like, it's such a small amount. There was a knot in the, as I was binding off, I think, there you go. There was a knot in the yarn. And I think there may have been another knot somewhere else already. Like maybe I started it when I was casting on and found a knot. It's a knotty yarn. It was very cheap. It's from our local discount store. So it's not an expensive yarn, but out of a 250 gram ball, I've used this much and I've come across 2 or 3 knots. So maybe the rest of the ball will be better. We'll see. That is a total of 12 grams. So not very much at all, but it's done. And we're moving on. The next thing that I finished, do I have these in order or not? No, I don't. Oh, no, I do. This is the next thing I finished. Look at that. Where did I put it now? The next thing I finished is actually a 12 cast-ons project, and that is 12 cast-on day 2. So if you've seen those, I started some boot toppers on day 2. I did not have a plan for them. I didn't have a pattern. I just knew that I wanted something that I could put in the top of my boot to keep my leg a bit warmer. And this is what I have. This yarn is absolutely beautiful. It is Malabrigo Rios. I have used it a few times before. Hang on. I'm just going to pull out. I should have done this before, but I'm just going to pull out all the things I have in this basket. I just have nowhere to put them because there's a lot of things in here. All right. Here we go. Now they can go back on top of the basket. All right. So this is Malabrigo Rios. This is what it looks like plain, and it's color 121 Mate. It's 100% superwash merino wool. So very soft, not super squishy, but very, very soft. I would say next to skin soft. And what I did was I held it double with this yarn. It's probably a little bit lighter, sorry, a little bit darker than it's showing on screen, but yes, held them double to get this beautiful reddy brown color. And then for the pattern, thought I wanted to sneeze, didn't. Okay. For the pattern, I looked through, I went into it in day 2, so I won't go into it hugely here, but I did find something in a knitting how to knit book that was talking about how to do lace, and it didn't have a pattern for this particular section, but it did have a little swatch of an example of lace. And I thought I really liked that because the decreases happen separately to the increases. And so you get a bit more of a wave pattern, zigzag-ish. And so I figured out how to do something very similar, and I really, really enjoy it. The first day, I think I got maybe halfway through the repeat, or yeah, halfway through a repeat of the pattern. And it was the first thing I came back to, which funnily enough, last time I did 12 cast ons last year, day 2's project was the first one that I finished as well. That time it was fingerless mitts. This time it's boot toppers. I haven't worn these yet. I've had them sitting here. I have blocked them, but I haven't worn them. Probably tomorrow. I've been wearing this dress a lot, which I haven't told you about today. This is my Advent dress, which I did also last year, the year before now, 2024 Advent. This was my Advent dress. It's all hand dyed by friends. We do a swap, and yeah, I've been wearing it a lot. I held fingering weight double with a white mohair to kind of soften the colours a little bit and to make it a bit warmer and a bit thicker. And so I wear this, like I think I've worn it every day this week. Love it. And so I'm just wearing it with thin leggings. So I'll probably try these out tomorrow because we're going out tomorrow, and I can wear my boots with my dress and some boot toppers. But yes, I'm very, very excited that I have boot toppers and they're done. Our weather at the moment, it's cold, it's cloudy. I saw blue sky this morning, but it's around, like we're kind of sitting between -1 and about 3 degrees Celsius. It's not that cold. However, we are meant to be having tops of -9 in a few days. So we're having some mild weather, which honestly I could do without. And then we'll go down to the really cold stuff again, which means that we can do stuff outside much easier because it's cold but not wet. Finish number 3 for today, and my first 12 cast on done. All right, the next one that I finished, because it's been so cold and our children have been playing outside, and we've been playing with them too, but we've decided that we also really like sitting on our outside seats, drinking tea while they play. But one thing that we discovered really quickly is that we got cold bottoms. And so I decided what we really needed was some seat pads for our outside seats. We don't have any kind of cushion on them. We've just used them with the, I want to say it's kind of a wicker pattern, but it's just plastic woven. Now we've decided it would be good. So I went to the shops. I was really impressed that they had 100% wool roving at this shop, because this was one of the cheaper shops, will we say. It's the same place, I think, that I got that other sparkly yarn. In fact, yeah, it's the same brand and everything. And I'd seen they had not just this wool, which is like singles, very thick. It's called roving wool on the label, but it is single, slightly spun. They also had unspun roving. It wasn't cheaper than where I buy unspun roving, and it wasn't the best quality, but they had it there. And I was tempted to buy it just to encourage them to get it again, because I like having a local place that I can buy wool, even if it's not the best quality. But this one, it's Ellison and May, roving wool, 100% wool, 200 grams to 85 meters. I'd seen it, they had quite a few colors. When I then decided, I didn't buy it. When I was like, I'm going to make these seat pads, and I remembered they had it, I went back to get some, and they had 3 balls left. They had 2 balls of this and 1 of the grey. So I bought the 3 balls I had left and turned it into seats. And this is seat pads. This is all I have left. This colour, by the way, is 531181 down there. There we go. So the first one that I finished was this one. I just knit the entire ball of grey, and then I finished it up with the maroon colour. It is just garter stitch. I think I cast on 40 stitches, I want to say. It is in my Ravelry project page. I'm pretty sure I cast on 40 stitches. I slipped the last stitch with yarn in front on every row to get a slip stitch edge. And when I finished, I just did a cast off, like a knitted cast off. I did knit until it was a square, but you can probably see that's not really a square anymore. I decided to felt them. So this is the second one. It is slightly bigger. It is a bit more square. But yes, I decided to felt them. They were quite stretchy when I finished, and I didn't want them to stretch out. I wanted them to have that extra warmth and solidness. And so I did felt them. And what I found interesting, first of all, I'm not an expert in felting. This is the first time I've deliberately felted something. I've accidentally felted a few things, but deliberately, this was my first time. And I knew that you needed heat, soap, and friction in order to felt. So what I started with was hot water, hand soap, yes, hand soap, and just kind of scrunching it, moving around in the water. And this colour bled a lot. The water was almost this colour. So that was fine. Did a couple of rinses. The colour disappeared or stopped coming out, but it wasn't felting. And just because it was so heavy with the water as I was like pulling it up and agitating it, it felt like it was stretching out more rather than shrinking in. So I did a couple of rounds of that. I then went, when it was hot, I did it in cold water to kind of shock the fibres and see if that would felt a bit better. And I think it had a little bit of an effect. But what I then did was I put it in our dryer. Now, our dryer is not working properly at the moment. I'm hanging up all of our clothes and it's working fine to do that. But yeah, our dryer is just not, it'll do like a little bit of a load and then be like, sorry, the water tank's full, and the water tank's not full. And I've tried cleaning it out and there's a sensor somewhere that I'm not finding. Anyway, that's another story. But I was like, I'm going to try and put it in the dryer and see if it will work. And it did. And I put both of them in. I think I put this one in first for a bit longer, so maybe that's why. But I left this one in longer. The grey just doesn't seem to have felted as much as the pink. Like even on this one, you can see like the grey is a little bit more separate. So I'm not sure why that is, but that's all right. So what I did, I put it in the dryer and I just kind of stopped it every 5-10 minutes to check and see. There was a lot of kind of waste that had come off in that process. So I was just pulling that out by hand because it was still quite wet and sticking to the dryer. So I was pulling that out by hand, but otherwise I just put it back in until it looked about how I wanted it to look. And when it got to that point, I pulled it out and I hung it up. We have radiators in our bathroom, so I hung it up on there to dry. And it took a few days to dry, even after being in the dryer and felting a bit. So we have 2 seat pads. That is finish number 4 and 5. And I'm excited to take them outside and give them a go. And then this yarn, I thought about keeping it to spin because it is roving and I can untwist it to spin it. But what I'm actually going to do is just next time I send a parcel to my parents, I'm going to include this. And Mum, you get a little bit more thick wool for your weavings. My mum weaves. I say this, I'm like, I have stuff that I can weave with now. But no, I'm going to send this to Mum. It's going to just leave and go, and that will be the end of that one. I don't need to start collecting that kind of wool because I have plenty of wool to actually spin myself. All right, I am going to pause here because the next two things I forgot to bring up. So I will be back in a few minutes with a few other things. So this next one you haven't seen as a whip at all, and it's not blocked, but it's not blocked for a reason. So the next one, I made another muscle burra. Muscle burra is a great pattern. It's by Ysolda Teague, and you start off small, you increase, you knit a long tube, you decrease, and then you have a long tube that you put inside itself to have a double thickness hat. It's in the pattern, I think it has every gauge from light fingering up to, say, DK worsted weight, so you can make it as thick as you want it as well. And it's designed to have the brim fold up as well, so you end up with 4 thickness of fabric around your ears, which is brilliant. Everyone in my family has these hats and we wear them all the time when we go outside. My husband the other day shaved his head. He's been going bald for years, and he finally was like, I'm just going to shave it and see how it works. He's got a goatee. It looks really good, but his head was getting cold because it's cold. We keep our temperature in our house cold enough to wear sweaters and warm things. Our kids tend to run hot, so they'll often walk around in this house with just t-shirts, but me and my husband will often wear jumpers, maybe a shawl, depending on how much we're moving around or not. And so when he shaved his head, he's like, my head's getting cold. So he asked if I could make him a hat that was just kind of sitting on top of the bald part, but not very thick. So what I did was I started the muscle burra, same as normal, and then at the end, when it was long enough for him, I just did, I think, 5 rows of rib, 2x2 rib, and cast it off. Now, it does twirl up, and I asked him if he wanted me to block it so that it wouldn't do that, or even make it a bit shorter, and he's like, no, that's fine, that's pretty perfect. When he wears it, it just sits like that around the bottom. It looks quite good having that little brim on it, but it's light enough that it's not bothering him. Like it feels like a single layer, even though it has that little brim at the end. So this was quite quick. I was expecting to do it doubled over still, but just shorter so that it didn't have the brim fold up. He was like, no, just the single. Single is great. So it looks a little bit ratty already. He's been wearing it quite a bit. And the yarn for this one, I've actually done something with. So the yarn is Van Gogh Mondial. This is the label. Now I'm throwing it away. So Mondial Van Gogh yarn, and this is colour 475. It's 60% wool and merino and 40% microfiber. Now, this was a new one to knit with. I didn't like the feeling of it as much to knit with, and probably because microfiber cloths have a bit of a feel to them. So I bought it because I liked the colours, because I was getting into sock knitting and I thought I could use it for sock yarn and didn't realise that it didn't have nylon in it. I just assumed microfiber would be a similar thing. I've never tried it, to be honest. Has anyone tried knitting socks with microfiber? Does it add the strength you need? I don't know. But it ended up sitting in my stash as a DK weight yarn singles, which I don't tend to use much. And I like the colour, but I could never find something for it to work with. Could have used it as like a shawl or something. Anyway, I knit this. I used 40, how much was it? 44 grams, so not even half the skein. And the rest of it, I ended up plying into this 2-ply yarn, which has some really beautiful colours in there. It didn't ply brilliantly because it was singles, but had been, I don't know what the word is, but it had been set as singles. So when I then plied it back, it got lots of curly cues, even though it's not what I would say is overplied, but it just sprung a lot because all of that twist had been set. To then untwist it, it took a while to unset it. So I actually blocked it twice. I blocked it once, not for long enough, and then I was like, all right, let's do this again. I blocked it in hot water. It did release some of the extra energy, but it's still quite an energetic yarn. So I'll be interested to see how that knits up. And I do have a project still in my 12 cast ons bucket over here. I do have a project in here that I'm planning to use some hand spun, including some other singles that I've plied. So I'm going to put that there, and if that comes out, I'll probably include this in that project. But yeah, so that means that it is a skein out of my stash, although it's also a skein into my stash. I'm moving it from my normal 8-ply section into hand spun, which is what I counted the other ones that I plied together as well. So that one is finished, and my husband can have it back to wear it. The final thing, the 7th thing that I finished since I last recorded, 7 things is a lot, but the seat pads don't really count, and the headband, anyway, 7 things. The final thing that I finished is the Crowone, which is cast on number 11 from 12 cast ons. This one is done, and what a journey we had. So this one is knit with Drops Air. It is a mix of alpaca, wool, and polyamide, I believe. Yeah, 65% alpaca, 28% polyamide, and 7% wool. This one is colour 37, and I also used colour 43, which is parrot green. I don't remember what this one is off the top of my head. My plan for this one had been to use 4 colours and use blue as the main and then stripe in the other 3. Well, I started striping in the pink because I thought I would change the green to pink here and then orange here, like I would do it in 3 sections, whatever that would be. I started striping the pink and did not like it. And I checked with my son and he's like, yeah, it's not as nice as I thought it would be with the pink there. And I was like, all right, let's just backtrack. I took out the 4 rows that I'd knit and I went back to green. He's like, can you still put the orange in? I said, yeah, absolutely, mate. So I did a bit more of the green, so it would be about halfway, and then I started doing orange. But I knew that the pink and the blue were such a bright contrast that it kind of went from this nice subtle thing to this really bright thing. And so I thought, instead of doing orange and blue stripes, how about I do green and orange stripes, and then try and make it brighter, but there's less contrast between green and orange than blue and orange. So I did that, and I got down to here and I was starting to knit the plain part down here before the ribbing, and I showed him, and I wasn't loving it, but it was graphic. And I checked with him, he's like, yeah, it's not as good as I imagined. I really like the blue and green. And I said to him, mate, would you like me to rip it back and just do the whole thing in blue and green? He's like, yes. Will you have enough yarn? And I was like, no, but I won't have enough yarn to finish it with the green stripes the whole way through anyway, because I'd originally only been planning to do a third of the stripes green. So I ordered another ball of yarn, and he really, really wanted this for his birthday. So I got to work. I ripped back half the body. I kept knitting with the blue and green. I managed to finish the body pretty quickly, and I picked up the sleeves. And I think I ended up knitting the sleeves in 2 days to get them done. And I finished the first sleeve, and I started on the second one, and that's when the next ball of yarn arrived. So I managed to do it the day before his birthday. The last ball of yarn arrived. I managed to finish the second sleeve, and it's not blocked either, but he doesn't care. He has been wearing this thing non-stop. He loves it. It fits him perfectly. I did the size 10. He is just turned 7. He is tall. He has a long torso for his age. So size 10 I thought would give me plenty of room. It has given me width in the body. The sleeves, I'm going to say, are a little bit tight, and they're kind of the perfect length, or maybe even slightly short. So he has asked me if I can make him a second one because he loves it so much. And I was like, yeah, I can, but not straight away. I've got a few other things I'm doing right now. So I am planning to do that. I'm debating whether I go back and add a little bit, even if I just add on a little bit of ribbing to the sleeves and add them, make them a bit longer. But what's happening is similar to what happens with this dress. So my sleeves here are not full length. And so when I pull them down, because it pulls the whole sleeve down, it pulls the neck out. And if I pull the neck up, it pulls the sleeve back up. And I think that's what is happening with him. I did do the neck cast on with larger needles than the pattern said, because I forgot to take the smaller ones out with me when I was planning to cast it on. And so I knew the neck might be a little bit stretchy, and it is a little loose. Next time I'll definitely do the size recommended in the pattern. But he doesn't like having things around his neck. And actually, I think doing the tighter ribbing will be fine, but I think it's helped him. The first time he put it on, he's like, oh, it's itchy, I don't like it. And we're like, you need to put it on over a shirt, because he just chucked it on. So I went and put a shirt on and put it on. He's like, oh, actually, this is nice. But if it rubs above the t-shirt line, he gets a bit, no. So I think having, like, he pulls the sleeves down, it pulls the neck down. It actually makes it quite comfortable for him to have it that way. But I think I will either reinforce it with a crochet stitch to just kind of bring it in. So not add crochet onto the edge, but just do it like a chain stitch, slip stitch inside to kind of let it sit a bit snugger. Or I had another friend suggest that I get some like shirring elastic and sew that in to snug it up a little bit, which I may also do. I might try the crochet first because I have the blue yarn and I can just do that. But I think I'm planning to make another one. What I'll probably do is do the sleeves a size larger, because they are a little bit tight, especially if he wears it over a long sleeve shirt, and a bit longer. So I'll probably add another couple of stripes on the sleeve to make it a bit longer. The sleeve and the body have the same amount of stripes according to the pattern, but you can see the sleeves have a bit longer, are a bit longer than the body is. So I might just add another couple of stripes to the sleeve rather than have a much longer blue section there. The other thing is, I don't want to buy a whole bunch more yarn. So I was looking at what I've got. I'm going to leave the pink out of it and use that for my daughter for something. But I have 3 balls, almost 3 balls here. I did go into both the blue and the green to finish it off, so they're not full balls, the orange is. So what I'm thinking is some kind of colour blocking. I'm going to have to buy at least 1 more ball because that took 167 grams and these are 50 gram balls. So I'm going to need 1 more ball of yarn. But what I'm considering is if I do like the collar, the hem, the cuffs in one colour, do the top part of the body in one colour, the bottom part of the body in another colour, and then maybe like the top part of the sleeve in the same colour as the top, and then the body, the rest of the sleeve in a different colour. Basically, I'm going to make it scrappy. I'm going to use these colour blocked throughout to try and make it a fun, scrappy jumper. I might even do like thicker stripes in the body. I don't know. But it's going to be the same pattern, the Crowone. It's going to be the same yarn. And I've just got to choose which colour I buy another ball of. And I was thinking, rather than buying another one of these colours, I might see if they've got like a yellow or something, so that I've got blue, green, yellow, orange, and it has more of a gradient effect. And so then I could do, I could do stripes, 1 of each colour, and maybe keep the collars matching to what's there. Like blue collar, blue top, then a green section, then yellow, then orange, and then do the same with the sleeves. Maybe I'll do that. So that's my thinking for that one. I do have plenty of yarn left over. I laughed. In the end, I bought 7 skeins to make this jumper, and I used 3.5. But I still have, 3.5 left because I had to buy this extra one. Anyway, so another jumper is incoming for that, which I'm very excited about, but I'm not starting it straight away because I have other things to work on. So they are all my knitting finishes. I do have a few not knitting finishes. I finished this yarn. I spoke about this one in my stash stats and plans as that I've started spinning again. I did block it when I went through and blocked everything else. This is 100% Polish wool. I got it in there's a place here that sells wool, and they sell ends by 500-gram bags or kilogram bags. And I bought one of these bags for my mum so that she could do some weaving while she was visiting. And it had this green in it. And I was like, that green is just so beautiful. It's a little bit more yellow than it's showing up on the camera there. A little bit more yellow, maybe. But I was like, I want that. There was 66 grams in this 500-gram bag that I bought for my mum. So I just took it out and spun it because I wanted to see if I would like the yarn, basically. Polish wool, it's not as fine. It's a longer micron. And even like these, I think they mostly sell for felting or for making rugs and things like that. So I don't think they're thinking spin to make clothes. But there is quite a bit of difference in quality among the different Polish wools that I buy from this same place. Some are coarser, some are finer. And so this one, I was like, it feels all right to touch. Let's spin it up and have a go. And I have to say, having spun it and blocked it, I'm pretty happy with that. It's like slightly more toothy, but I don't think I'd have a problem wearing that next to skin. There were, as I was going through, I bought one for my mum, ended up buying one for me, and my mum bought another one for her. So we ended up with 1.5 kilograms of unspun Polish wool that were all ends. So some of them were, 20 grams, some of them were 50 grams, some of them were anywhere in between. Obviously, some were a bit more than 50 grams. And so we just went through and were like, do you want this color? Do you want this color? It was a party. And some of them I picked up and I was like, I'm not going to spin that. Mum, you can have this one because she's weaving. It doesn't matter really how soft it is. And there were some colors that she really wanted, some that I really wanted. It was just fun. Thanks, Mum, for that lovely experience. So yes, this one was my test to see if I actually wanted to buy more for me. And I did. And now it's all sitting somewhere waiting to be spun up. But that's another story. I did do this 3-ply. No, I changed it. So I was going to do 2-ply, and then I was like, I'm not sure if it's going to be thick enough. I did a couple of ply backs, and I was like, I like the look of the 3-ply better. So I ended up chain plying it. I did not enjoy the process of chain plying. Sometimes I don't mind it. Most of the time I'm not a big fan, but I have a Kiwi 3, and I left the bobbin on my wheel. So my wheel has 2 spots to put the bobbin down the bottom. So you can ply a 2-ply or you can chain ply with just the wheel. You don't need a lazy Susan, which is somewhere to put the bobbin elsewhere. I didn't enjoy the experience plying off there. I thought I'd chain ply off there. Still didn't enjoy the experience. So next time I'll just get out my lazy Susan. I'll stop being lazy and I'll use a lazy Susan. But anyway, it's 3-ply. I quite like the yarn. Since I've done this, I heard Robin from Grumpy Sheep Happy Llama, who's another podcast here, really love them. They're Canadian ladies and they have a great podcast if you're interested in another one. She was talking about spinning and how she'd knit a colourwork jumper in a 3-ply and she really does prefer knitting in 2-ply. And so I asked her, what's the difference for colourwork? Because I'd known for lace, it can make a difference and other things. And I just assumed that with spinning, 3-ply was the goal. And you only did 2-ply if you were spinning it too thick and you couldn't get thin enough. My ignorance. Excuse my ignorance. So I asked her, and she said actually 2-ply, when you're doing colour work, it sits flatter and it blends in together. When you do 3-ply for colour work, it kind of makes the stitches pop a bit more, which creates a different look. And I thought that's why all of my Shetland yarn that I have, all of my Holst yarn, which is kind of designed for Fair Isle colour work type things, are 2-ply. And I hadn't kind of clicked that there was a reason for that. I just hadn't considered that. So this one's 3-ply, but I am considering now for the rest of these little odds and ends doing them 2-ply, because I'm probably going to use them for colour work. They're not sweater quantities, they're not large amounts. This one I'm definitely going to keep as a 3-ply. Maybe I'll use it for a shawl or a cowl or something, but the rest of them I'm going to do 2-ply and end up with a whole bunch of little bits and pieces that I can use for colour work. I'm very, very excited. And that one, I should say, it's 114 meters, 66 grams. So it shrunk, what, maybe just under 10%, maybe 7-8% when I washed it. The other thing that I did was I made a project bag. So I picked out some 2.5-inch squares that I had, and I put them together, and then even the bottom came from a bit of scrap that I had somewhere. The inside is just white, also used scrap. I only had one piece of batting to use inside, so I chopped that in half, and that told me how big the bag could be. Like, it really is just using what I've got, and I really love the effect of it. A lot of these squares have really fun memories for me. Like this one, I did a whole log cabin quilt out of 1930s style vintage prints. The bunnies came in a scrap pack that I got when I was in lockdown. This one down here, this one up here, these are this one's Anna Maria Horner. I don't know if this one is as well, but I bought them. Well, actually, they were kind of payment. I volunteered in a shop for a while, and she paid me in fabric. Also during lockdown, and it was really lovely to be able to get out and do something and get material for projects. So yeah, there's just lots of fun little memories in this for me. But I enjoyed making it. I enjoyed making it scrappy. So I did that. And then afterwards, I was looking at what I had on my sewing desk still, because I had a whole lot of scraps left over from when I made the Jane Austen bags. And so then I decided to I didn't have any more batting. So what I usually do is I use leftover batting from quilts to make bags. I didn't have any leftover batting, but we had, and this is the extent of like repurposing, right? We had some furniture that we shipped over from Australia years ago, and there was glass in it, like china cabinets with glass shelves. And the glass shelves were wrapped in an old doona cover from my husband's grandma. And so when it arrived, I was like, I don't want to throw out, I think there was an old doona cover and maybe an old tablecloth as well. It's like, I don't want to throw these out. So what I did was I repurposed them as wrapping paper. And the tablecloth works really well for that. The doona cover was so worn that I've used it, but it's wearing. It's wearing. And so then I thought maybe I could use that like double thickness as a batting. So I had this panel that I'd sewn up. These are all leftovers, little squares that I cut off from the bags that I was making for the Advent swap that I did. And I'd just sewn them together randomly for fun at some point. And so I pulled that out. Well, actually, that had been sitting on my desk. And I thought, what can I do for the other side? And I still had some panels left over from the Jane Austen bags that I made. So I bought a book panel that was an alphabet Jane Austen. And so I auditioned a few, and I came to the conclusion I would use this one. Has needlework on it. And this was one of the bags that I used as well. And this was, I think, the lining for one of the bags that I made. So it really is, and like even here, you can see I've got a square up here of the same fabric. yeah, like it is just total scrappy with what I had left. This was the lining of one of them. This one on top is actually the curtain fabric in my kids' room that I had just a little strip of, and I needed the back panel to be slightly bigger, so I just chucked that on. And then inside I had, this is one of the linings that I had left over and a large part of. So I whipped that one up, and I did use 2 layers of this old Doona cover as the line, not the lining, this is the lining, but as the batting, as the part inside that you quilt together. And I have to say, I'm really enjoying it. It's a much thinner bag, but it still has the weight that you would expect for a project bag, and it's still given it that that stiffness, that solidness. So as an experiment, very, very happy. And I have a whole Doona cover left that I can cut up and use as linings. And then last night, having done that, I had this little panel that was also left over from scraps from this part, but the darker blue were from another quilt that I'm making for a friend. And so I pulled this one out, which is also scraps from that quilt that I'm making for a friend. And then I had a little bit of the same lining fabric left over. So I just turned that into a little purse, which I will probably keep together with this bag, and I use it as like a little notions one. So yeah, this one I was very, very happy as an experiment that worked. But also as I was making the bags for the Advent swap, I was a little bit sad because I liked them all and I was giving them all away. And so now I have this little bag of memories of all of those other bags as well. So that was really fun, and I'm now just excited to do all the scrappy sewing. I packed most of my stuff away, but I just have this little, it's like when I cut something, instead of putting all of the scraps, I have a scrap sorting system. I just put it into this little, it's not this shape, it's long and narrow, but it's another plant pot. I use plant pots for sewing storage a lot because it's weightier than plastic, which means you can put, heavier notions in without them falling over. Yeah, I really like them, and they're often really pretty. So I had that, and it was just overflowing with scraps that I hadn't put away, and I now can't put away because all my scrap storage is behind everything else in my cupboard. So I was like, why not just go through them and keep finding things? And I really want to keep doing that more now. I should mention, if you are interested, I have a tutorial for project bags that I will link down below. This is the one that I made in that tutorial. It's just a perfect little sock size, but I do mention how to change the size if you want a different size in the tutorial. And basically all I do is I just pick a rectangle of fabric and I follow the instructions. I don't worry about any measurements for size when I'm doing scrappy. I just go, what is the size of my, batting? What is the size of my whatever it is? And I make a bag out of it. So yeah, that is linked below if you are interested. All right, that is all of my finishes. Now we're going to go into whips. And have I left that one downstairs too? I'll be back in a minute. Sorry, guys. I'm back. All right. Sorry, I pulled everything together a couple of days ago to record this video, and I just haven't had a chance, which is why I'm here so early this morning trying to get this done. But it means that I have worked on a couple of extra things since I pulled everything together, and it also means I've stolen some things back into normal life and making. So this is another bag that I made, same pattern, just larger scale. And this is the one that has been getting all of my attention really since I finished the Crowone jumper. This is the Awesome Gossamer. It is by Stephen West. It's a shawl pattern. And in this shawl, you hold lace weight fluffy yarn double. I think he does it with mohair. I have Suri, it's called Suri alpaca mohair. Oh, sorry. It's called Suri alpaca mohair, but it's actually not got any mohair in it. It is, do I have it down here? I think I've just said Suri alpaca mohair. It is 60, No, I'm going to check this out now. I do have it written in my book under my yarn stash. It is 53% alpaca, 14% wool, and 33% polyamide. So it doesn't actually have any mohair in it, but it is definitely fluffy. And this is one of the colours. This is what it looks like. It's lace weight. It's 375 meters for 25 grams in a ball, in a skein, in a ball. And it does come, I think the shop buys it on a cone and winds it into balls. And so you buy a 25 gram ball pre-wound, which is really useful for getting going. This project, I think for 2 colours, I needed more than 375 meters. So I've just gone with what I have. And then if I need to fudge it at the end, I will. But I am enjoying doing it. And this is where I'm up to. I am not in the middle of the row. Isn't that lovely? This is where I'm up to. So for this one, you start off with this little garter section, and then you do small bumps, medium bumps, and then there will be a large bump section, and then there will be a border, which is back to, I think, garter, but maybe a chevron garter. This is so much fun to look at. It is not the most fun to knit, but it is a lot of fun to look at. I really like this gradient pattern. I really like the effect of the bumps. The way that you get this gradient so beautifully is that you're holding 2 yarns together the whole time. And so you have the lightest 2, then you drop the lightest and you join in the next one, then you drop the lightest and you join in the next one to get this gradient, which means that you end up with 2 bumps that have the same color in it. And it does lead to this beautiful gradient effect. You can see the darkest and the lightest being held together here to get that, that little effect. Part of me would prefer it if it didn't have that, if it just had a stark line between the darkest and lightest. But that's okay. That's how the pattern's written. That's how I'm doing it. I was struggling with the lace weight fluffy yarn held double because it was just slipping off my needles a lot when I started it. I am using Chalgu red lace 4mm for this project. I don't remember if that's what it says in the pattern or not, but I don't mind it anymore. I've gotten used to the slippery, should I just hit the mic again? I'm sorry. I've gotten used to the slippery nature of it, so I don't mind it as much anymore. But I have made a couple mistakes with these here. These are drop down stitches to get that nice little scallop look. And at one point I did the drop down and I didn't drop, how do I say this? When I do my drop downs, I think I don't know, I haven't looked at his tutorial, but the way he's done it in other projects that I've done of his is that you count down, you put your needle in that bottom one, and then you kind of do the ladder back up so that the stitch undoes above it. With the fluffy yarn, I was finding it wasn't working that way. So I actually started undoing it from the top until I got to the stitch that I was meant to be knitting into, and then I would knit into that stitch. So the ladder was already there. That has worked very well for every single one, but one where I apparently didn't pick up the right stitch, and then it started dropping down below that. I noticed it, I think as I was doing the next drop down stitch, I noticed that they had a bit of a hole underneath it. And so I simply got out my crochet hook, dropped down to that point, picked up the one that I needed to pick up, and then laddered it back up to the top. The same way I would fix any other knitting if I had just one hole. I just drop down to where that hole is, fix that stitch, and pick it back up to the top. So it wasn't a big deal. I caught it early enough. If I hadn't caught it, it would have been a bigger deal. But also because it's fluffy yarn, it's sticky, like it sticks to itself. So it hadn't kept laddering down. It had just dropped one stitch in all that time that I'd been knitting it. And so I was able to fix that quite simply. The other thing that I noticed at one point is I think I picked up an extra stitch at one point, like I maybe didn't drop a stitch properly, and so I just knit 2 together at that point. and then at another point I'd knit two together accidentally, and so I just picked up, like I just made a stitch at that point. And honestly, I couldn't tell you where either of those things happened. If I look at it long enough, I probably could figure it out. But it's a couple of stitches in such a large sea of stitches that no idea. And honestly, I know my husband, he's not going to care. This is for him. He is waiting for this, which is why I wanted to pick this up next after I finished my son's birthday present. However, I am this far through and I realized that I'm only a third of the way. I think halfway from in terms of depth, but I'm a third of the way through in terms of stitches. I was trying to do kind of one bump a day. 2 days ago, I did 2 bumps. I ended up with a bit of extra time to sit and knit. And yesterday, I didn't touch it at all because I didn't have time to sit and knit. No, I did knit yesterday, but I was knitting out of the house. And as these rows get longer, I'm less and less likely to take it when I'm going out to knit because it does require a bit more focus. At the moment, I've got like 7 rows of plain knitting with just increases, and then 1 row of concentrating. So it's pretty simple. It's good movie knitting if I'm not in the dark, but it is, yeah, it's going to take some time. And so I'd love to get it done before the end of winter so my husband can use it this year. But I also recognize that that may not be realistic. I'm not going to show you all the colours individually for that one. I will say that when I was buying it, I bought it from Crowone. So I don't have a brand for it other than Crowone. And I will link down below Ravelry pages and any shops that I have bought stuff from like that one, or yarn dyers and stuff. I will link all that stuff down below. So if you're interested, it's a Polish shop that I buy it from. But they only had 7 colours that worked in a gradient that I was happy with. And so what I ended up doing was buying 2 of the lightest colour, which is the off-white or cream. And so my first one, I'm just holding that with itself. And because every other one is marled, having one that's not marled does create a different colour. So it still has that gradient effect that I wanted. So if you're wanting to do it and you're ready to do lots and lots of stitches, like I think at the end you've got 777 stitches or something for the last row. So it's a lot, but you're not quite sure about colours. It does marl, which gives you that gradient, but also if you need to end up holding a colour with itself to get the colours that you need, go for it. It works. Here is another one of my 12 cast-ons that I've worked on since I casted on. This was day number 1. And this one I am using Sapino Surprise from Biferno, which is 100% merino and it's colour 96, but I think it might be one of a kind, I'm not sure. So that is this colour here, beautiful minty green with speckles of different things in it. And I'm using that with 2 balls of scrap yarn that I've made into big balls. I did 1 ball of greeny blues and 1 ball of pinks. And this is where I'm up to. So you can see my marker there, day 1, that's where I got up to on day 1 of the 12 cast-ons. And I've just done a couple of inches, maybe 1 inch on top of that. When I finished it, I had just finished, got 1 colour change here, and I was literally like 6 inches or something left before my pink changed. And so you might be able to see down here it's much darker. It gets into a lighter section up here. That's the colour change for the pink. It's still variegated, so it's not completely different, but the first one wasn't variegated. So the first one was quite all over dark. I haven't done a huge amount. This was a couple of nights work, I think. But I just wanted to pick it up and get through that next colour change. This is the linen soup wrap. And for my scrappy balls, I did do, I'm throwing it away now. I did a Russian join, which I spoke about a lot more on my day 1 cast on. You can see there I've got a little bit more of this pink, then I've got some quite bright pink, and then I go back into a darker maroony colour. See, every time I show you a project like this, I'm going to want to just sit down and work on it again. I think I did that one after I finished the boot toppers and I wasn't quite sure what to work on next. I pulled this one out for just a couple of days. It was quite fun. The next one that I have to show you is in this bag. And these are some of the Christmas socks that I started. I have them in this little DPN cozy that I am pretty sure I showed when I did the cast on. It just needed these snaps added, but I'd made it ages ago. My little duckies. And these are on my mindfulness needles at the moment, but this is the one that I did pull out. I had some bamboo DPNs, so I pulled them out when I was working outside on it. And this is where I'm up to. This is yarn is Hobby Christmas Sock, colour number 5. And it is a self-striping but with little bits and pieces coming out. And for the heel, I just used some hand dyed that I made over summer. I think I dyed that. So this is how it's working out. You've got light, dark, light, a bit of white, light, dark, light, a bit of white. And so I love that pop for the heel in there to just add some colour, some more colour. I have markers every 10 rows to count my stitches, and this beautiful little toadstool that my sister made me. Show you the face. There you go. My cute little green toadstool is there marking where I started the heel. I haven't counted the foot yet. And honestly, I have so many sock projects on the needles at the moment, and I don't know where my sock ruler is, which is just a piece of transparency plastic, like quilter's template plastic, that I've marked up where all of the people in my family have sock lengths where I need to start the toe for all the people in my family. And these are for someone in my family. And without that, I don't know how long to make the foot. So I need to go for a little rummage and see if I can find my sock ruler before I knit too much further on this one. But that's okay. I can guarantee that it needs to be longer than that. So I can knit a little bit further, and then I need to find my sock ruler. The pattern for this, I'm doing vanilla socks on Magic Loop by Kay of the Crazy Sock Lady. However, I'm using DPNs. I don't think I've mentioned this for a while. Kay has tutorials for how to knit socks that are here on YouTube. They're free. They go along with patterns that she has. So she has a tutorial and a pattern for Magic Loop, for 9-inch circular, and for DPNs. I have only bought the Magic Loop pattern, but I use the same recipe no matter how I do it, and I've just adjusted. And I think when I did 9-inch, I did watch her tutorial for 9-inch and just adjusted the pattern that I had already purchased to make that. So you don't need to buy all 3 patterns. It's the same recipe of sock. It's just teaching you like where to put markers for what type of thing you're using. So that's what I use. The pattern on this is just a 2x2 rib. So I do 2 rows of 2x2 and then 2 rows of plain knitting, and it gets that beautiful texture. And it just adds a little bit of stretch, which means that the sock will snug in a little bit. Nice little pattern, but very, very simple. However, I was knitting on these during Polish class yesterday, and I kept messing up the 2x2 rib. So I think I need to start a new pair of socks. No, I had been working on the Crowone sweater during Polish, so I need to either start a pair of vanilla socks or figure out which project I'm at a plain knitting section that I can just knit in Polish class, because I do better when I'm knitting in Polish class, but those are clearly not good for that right now. I had to, like in the middle of Polish, I was tinking back, sometimes a row, sometimes a few stitches. It was annoying. And let me tell you, tinking back when you're reading a language that you're still learning is quite tricky. All right, the next thing that I have worked on is another pair of socks. It's also part of day 10 of 12 cast-ons, and these are my Gerst socks, Gerste. Don't know if I'm saying that correctly. These ones I'm using black wattle yarn and fibre in the stringy bark colorway. So this main one is stringy bark, and then it came with 2 minis, that brown one and the orange one that I'm going to use for the heel. Day 10, I spoke a lot about Australian trees with this one, but yes, you can go have a look if you want to get more information about Australian trees. This is stringy bark. It is beautiful. I did start this on day 10 of 12 cast-ons. However, I started it according to the pattern, and I have since frogged that and changed it. The pattern has this pattern here for the cuff, but it's just a really long section of that pattern for the cuff before you start changing it for the pattern. And I wasn't happy with it. I cast on a size larger than I normally do for this person, so that it would have a bit more stretch in that area. But then I realized the problem was it wasn't cinching in because it was a different type of knit, a different type of rib. And so it was just going to be way, way, way too big. Like, it was just, this whole sock would fall down constantly. So I decided to rip it out and start again with my 2x2 rib, which I do for all of my socks. And every time I do something different, I regret it. So Kirsty, 2x2 rib for socks. So I did my normal cuff here, and then I started the pattern after the cuff. I'm really happy with it. I've really enjoyed working on this. It is a simple pattern, simple repeat, but it is interesting enough. And I think because there's so much purling in it, I need to pay attention a little bit more. So it's been a really nice mindfulness focus knit that I can still do while I'm talking to people or watching TV. Like, it's not difficult, it's just different and therefore nice. So I have basically taken this stitch pattern from Gerst, which is in 52 weeks of socks, and just put that into my vanilla socks and magic loop recipe that I use for everything else. So it'll end up with a patterned sock, but still using that same base recipe. So yeah, I'm excited to be making some progress on that, and it is one that I leave in my bedroom, and if I come in here and I just want a bit of peace and quiet, that's what I've been picking up to just do a few rows. So it's a slow progress one, but it is enjoyable. All right, the next thing that I started, this is another new start since the 12 cast-ons, and these are my mittens. I think I mentioned in one of the episodes, one of the cast-on videos, that I had bought yarn for mittens. I bought 4, are they called cakes? Plates. These are called plates. I bought 4 plates of Let Loopy plotalope. I don't know how to say that word. It's loopy. I think it's loopy yarn. It's Icelandic unspun, and this is, I think it's DK or worsted weight yarn as listed, but it's unspun, so it's quite thick, and you can either knit it tighter to get a smaller gauge or looser to get a thicker gauge. Thicker gauge. I started this with these patterns. What is the pattern called? Hang on. Something Creek. Flynn Creek mittens. It's a free pattern. The pattern itself is fine, but it's DK or worsted weight pattern, and I wanted to hold this double. And I thought, I'd looked around and I thought that if you hold it double, you would get a DK weight because it would squish. It doesn't squish as much as I thought. So when I started it, I started according to the pattern. It was way too big. So I had a look and I started treating it as chunky, held double. I did want to hold it double. I started treating it as chunky and adjusted my stitch count. And so I'm doing smaller. The Flynn Creek mittens is only one size. So I'm doing less stitches. I think I'm doing 32 stitches. And so I'm still doing the same pattern on the front, but I have less plain stitches on the back. And you can see there's a thumb gusset forming over here. So that's the top of the mitten. My plan for this think it goes on this one. My plan for this is to just have some really nice warm mittens that I can wear in the snow, and to make some not just for me but also a pair for my husband and my 2 kids. So this is the experiment one where I'm following the pattern in the size that they have but with less stitches. Does that make sense? And then once I've done it, I will maybe try and felt it, see if I can, without shrinking it much, but felt it a little bit to make it a little bit more waterproof, snowproof. And then if that works, I will get to going on some for my husband and kids. It has been slow going. And by that I mean it knits up really quickly, but I haven't touched it for a while. That Crowone sweater took over all of my knitting, and now the Awesome Gossamer has taken over all of my knitting, and we've had warmer weather. So it hasn't felt as urgent. But like I said, we're going to get back to some -15, -16 degree days. Or at least nights, some -10 degree days. So I should really get going on these. Maybe I will. Maybe I won't. It's still in my I want to get them done but doesn't seem urgent category. All right, another one that I have pulled out since I last spoke to you is my jelly roll blanket. Now this one I'm doing scraps. I said earlier that when I finish a pair of socks, can you even see the scraps in there? I said earlier when I finish a pair of socks, I put 5 grams aside for blankets. This is one of those blankets. So Jelly Roll is a pattern by K.F. Jones, and you just knit these strips. Now I am modifying the pattern to join it here. It's a mod that Kay of the Crazy Sock Lady has done, and she has all the information about how she does it on her page. I think my difference for what she does is on the edge, I slip one with yarn in front. I think she does that differently. So my last stitch is slip one with yarn in front to get that little V detail. There you go. I'm also doing the Weave and Steven on the back so that I don't have to go back in and tie in all of my yarns. And I have also decided that I'm going to do different widths. So you can see this next row that I started is significantly wider. I was casting on 20 stitches for this one. This one I cast on 30 stitches. And I'm also going to do some columns with 25 stitches. I decided that for a couple of reasons. One is all of my yarns are about 5 grams, give or take a few grams. And so sometimes they offset and sometimes they are quite close. Do I have one that's close? Yeah, so like here, sometimes they line up almost perfectly. And I don't mind that, but I don't want them to all get to the point of lining up. And also knitting 20 stitches and then joining was getting a little bit repetitive. And so I thought if I do a bit of a longer one, then maybe I can knit for a bit longer before I get to the end of the row. So I'm going to just change it up every row how many I do. I'll do some that are the same width together, some that are different, and I'm just going to see how I feel when I'm starting the next row. These ones I'm using Chiaogu 2.5 millimeter DPMs because they are like they're such small rows. Using DPMs I have no problem with for this. I don't remember when I started it. I just went through a phase for a few days where I just wanted something plain knitting to work on. I think after 12 Cast Ons, I'm always a little bit kind of at sea of what to do next. And so this was another one that I pulled out. It lives in our coffee table. There's a couple of drawers. And so one day I was like, I don't know what to work on. And I pulled this out and ended up finishing a row and starting the next. So it was fun. I also have worked a little bit on these socks, which were also day 10 of the 12 Cast Ons. These are the Fox's Day Out socks by Charlotte Stone of Stone Knits. It is not in one of her books. It is an independently published pattern. And I finished the cuff and just started the first row of colour work. So not a huge amount. Actually, I've just started the second row. I finished the first row. I've just started the second row of colour work. So I did the cuff on, I've even got yellow here, orange wool here for the stitch marker because I didn't have stitch markers in here for some reason. Yeah, so the cuff, I just did 2x2 rib, my normal cuff. Like I said, I don't think that's what the pattern says, but I did that normal, and then she has you increase for the colour work so that you have a good amount of stitches both for the pattern repeat and so you have colour work often cinches in more than just plain knitting because it's not as stretchy, and so she has you increase for that. So I've done the increases, I've done one row of colour work, and I really, really want to work on this some more because as soon as I see a little bit of progress, I want to get back to it. So yeah, that one has fox colour work and some pine trees. So I've just started the pine trees for that. I've got a little badge on this one. Knitting is my therapy. Yeah, so that's another one that I just yesterday, because everything was up here and that was downstairs, so I grabbed that one to work on, and now it's another thing to show you today. All right, this last one is a big one. It is another new cast on since I finished the 12 cast ons, and it is in this bag that my son made for me for, honestly, I'm not sure if it's Mother's Day or for Christmas. It may have been for Christmas. But this is very, very, very exciting to me because I started a temperature blanket. Now, my husband is fond of saying something like, cows go moo, chickens go cluck, Kirsty goes, I want to start a temperature blanket. Because I do say that a lot, especially when we're getting cold weather. -16 is so different to me as an Australian, what I've ever experienced in my life, that every time I see and live through a day that is -16, I go, I want to record this somehow. It needs to go somewhere recorded for posterity's sake that I have lived in -16 degree weather. It is just so exciting to me. But in order to record the -16, because that's the low, I needed to have a temperature blanket that would have both highs and lows. And I started one in 2020 that was a paper pieced one. And I'm only about a third of the way through that because I don't do paper piecing as much anymore. But that one, I was recording highs and lows, and I hadn't figured out a way. I wanted to knit one. I didn't want to crochet one. I wanted to knit one that would record highs and lows and still be a pattern that I liked. So I looked into a whole lot of different things. I didn't want to start like Cozy Memories, like individual square type one. I do love the crochet granny square blankets, and you could do highs and lows with that pretty easy, but I didn't want to do crochet. I wanted to do knitting. I considered doing like a wide strip jelly roll where I could do like 6 months, like split the year into 2 lots and do 6 months on one side, 6 months on the other, but on each side do a strip for highs and a strip for lows. So you'd end up with kind of some color blocking going on. And I thought that could be fun. But in the end, every time I looked at them, I wasn't sold. Then I found a pattern, and did I print it out? I'm sure I printed it out. Not that one. Then I found a pattern, yes I did, called, it's a free pattern, so you can go check it out if you're interested, the 2-panel bias knit blanket. So it's knit on the bias, like you're increasing. It actually reminds me a lot of the dishcloths that I knit, in that you're increasing every row to get that triangle shape. And the way that they do it is they have 3 colorways that are color changing. And so when you look at the pattern, you get stripes, but they have like groups of 3 stripes. And then every now and then one of those colors will change, kind of like my linen soup blanket, in that, or linen soup wrap, in that you have 3 colors and one of them will change occasionally. So you end up with a striping effect overall, but also changes. And so it gave me a good idea of what a temperature blanket might look like. But it's also medium 4, is that DK worsted weight wool? And so I thought maybe I could do it fingering held double or DK or a mix of both was my thinking. But I also wanted to join as I go. So this one you knit 2 separate panels and then you join them together. I wanted to join as I went. So I started on the inside corner and I knit, however many days I could at that point. And then I came back and I joined it on the other side. And I'm joining it the same way that I'm joining my jelly roll blanket, I think. No, I'm not. Because I don't want the seam on the right side. I want the seam on the wrong side. So I'm just knitting to the end of the row, but 1 stitch, and then I'm slipping the last stitch with yarn in front and the panel stitch. And then when I turn around, I knit those 2 together and I do my increase and I knit back. It is on my Ravelry page if you're interested. All the information's there. So I am joining it as I go, and it means that I can see the highs and the lows at the same time. My only problem is I only have 1 set of needles. I'm using 4.5 millimeter, I believe. Maybe double check that. Yeah, 4.5 millimeter because that's what I had. And so I am debating getting another pair so that I can have both sides active at the same time. At the moment, I can knit 1 side, but then I've got to turn it around because the other side I start on this end, so I need to reposition. I have tried on cord, but they're is it this one? Oh no, this one I think is fine with tried on cord. Anyway, this is what I've done so far, and it is on the same pair of needles, so it's a little bit harder to see. But this is where I'm at. So this side is the lows and this side is the highs. I will put a picture up here of my color gradient wheel so you can see. I think I have 5. Yeah, I have 5 degrees Celsius per color. So I have 14 colors, and my lowest one is -15 or less, and my highest one is 35 degrees or more. If I was in Australia, I would increase that. I would be doing 35 to 40, maybe 40 to 45, and then 45 degrees plus, because if you get higher than 45, it deserves its own color. But I'm not in Australia, so I've decided 35 and plus is a reasonable place to cap in Poland. Yeah, I can also always change that one if I need to. So this is where I'm up to. I was just looking, there's a bit of a hole here. I think I tied in the yarn before I moved on, or I held the yarn double so it went backwards something. Anyway, so I'll fix that. But yes, that's what I've done so far. My only problem is that I do have one, like to have it line up at the right spot, I end up having to do an extra day of the lows before I can add the previous day high, because the way that I'm joining with slip stitches, that's just the way it works out. So I can only ever do to the previous day's low, because then I have to wait for my current day's low to put the previous day's high. Does that make sense? Anyway, so that's what I'm done, and that's what I'm doing. And you will have noticed in the photo, some things are just a yarn by itself. Some of them I'm holding double with a different yarn. I did go stash diving for this one, and I think after I finished writing all my stash down, so I knew what I had, and after I did that, I was like, I want to do a temperature blanket. I don't want to buy yarn for it. I know that. So let's go stash diving and see. And I had a whole bunch of DK weight that I could have used, but then I started looking through my fingering weight and I found plenty that I could use. And so I thought, let's just do that. Do it held double. If I'm not quite happy with a color, or I'm going to need a bit more meterage, I can find something different to hold it with. So I have a couple that I'm holding with minis, Some I'm holding double with themselves, some I'm holding double with something different. Some of them are solids, some of them are variegated. So it is just kind of a mixed bag. I just grabbed what I wanted to get a color gradient that I was happy with and colors that I liked. Obviously, we've had cold weather, and so it's very, very blue heavy at the moment, but also blue is half of it. Yeah, I think I have half of them are kind of softer blues, and then it gets into stronger colors for the second half. So very, very happy with that. Yeah, so that's just the way that I've done it to get my yardage to stretch as well. I may run out of something because obviously I don't know going in how much yardage I'm going to need for this. That's fine. If I run out of something, I'll either grab something that I can replace it with. Like, it is what it is, but for starting, that's what I have. I haven't touched it since I started it. It's just been sitting in a bag waiting for me to talk to you about it. So I am very excited to work a little bit more on that one now that I've showed it to you, and I can bring it back down to the area that I'm working. I've got about a week, I think, that I can add to that now. But I did it. I started a temperature blanket. I'm so excited that I started a temperature blanket. Is that everything? I think that's everything that I have been working on knitting wise. I do have a couple of spinning things to share with you. I shared on the Stash Stats and Plans that I was planning to do some drop spindling. So this is the drop spindling that I started with the hand prepared fibre, which is this fluffy goodness. This is a mix. The dark brown is a merino that I had bought. It's the same one that I used in my weekender spin, which was early last year that I knit that one up. The white is some, I'm not sure what type of sheep, but it's wool that I bought in Australia and hand processed myself, like washed everything. And I'm pretty sure there's still quite a high amount of lanolin in that. So it's not the smoothest stuff to spin. And then the more orangey color in there, that is alpaca. I have a friend in Australia who owns some alpacas, and she very kindly gave me some raw alpaca, washed but unprocessed at all alpaca. So I included some of that in here as well. So I am excited to be spinning this. The other thing I've been working on down here is I've been doing the grey Shetland spin. So here are 2 bobbins completed of the grey Shetland. Having done 2 bobbins, and I'm now working on the third. I've got maybe 30% of the third bobbin to go. I was really tempted after hearing about how 2-ply is better for colour work to turn this into a 2-ply. But because I already had the fibre in 3 bumps and was in the process of spinning the third bump when I heard about 2-ply is better for colour work, I think I'm going to complete it as a 3-ply as I planned. It'll be 150 grams of 3-ply yarn. And I don't know what I'm going to do with it. Part of me was thinking it would be kind of cool to do it as a background colour for a cardigan or something, but 150 grams is not going to be enough for that anyway. So I'm just going to finish it as it is, turn it into a 3-ply, and next time I do spinning of small amounts, I'll probably do a 2-ply instead. I don't want to do a 2-ply here and then for the last bobbin do like a center pull ball or something. I could start with 2, stop one when I'm about halfway, join the other one, and then join it back in. Like, I could do that. Probably not gonna. Probably I'll just stick with the 3-ply for this one, but I will think about it in the future. And I was also planning to show you my next spin because I got some beautiful fibre for my birthday from my parents. However, I went to pull that out and I realised that is also packed at the bottom of all my other boxes. So next to me here, I do have a chest, which is where a lot of my fibre lives. And I think what I'll probably do is I'll just clear off the top of this and pull something out that I want to spin next, rather than trying to dig into a a box that is stacked under a lot of other boxes. We are in the middle of packing for move. We don't know when we're moving, but it means that a lot of my craft stuff is currently very inconveniently stored. So that's where we are. Sorry, Mum and Dad, I do want to spin that fibre, but I'll pick something out of here and show you that next time. Another one that I have here waiting to show you is, this is my 3 Seasons cardigan by Wool and Pine Design. I knit this, it's Malabrigo Rios in the colour Bobby Blue, and I knit this 3 years ago now. I loved knitting it. I thought it was so delightful to knit. I loved the pattern. However, I did it as a cropped cardigan. I still have 1.5 balls of this, so I have plenty more to go, but I did it as a cropped cardigan and I do not like it. The button here, I think, is slightly too high or something, and it pulls it funny. It always kind of sits up. It doesn't, I don't know entirely whether it's too big or too short or a mix of the two, or if I just don't like cardigans that have a low button. It just looks sloppy on me. And so every time I wear it, which honestly I haven't worn it for probably over a year, every time I wear it, I just think, ugh. And I've put it on a few times to wear it over dresses, and I just take it off every time. It does not work. So what I've done is I've started unraveling it. I wanted to show you before I unraveled it too much. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to unravel the button band. I'm going to unravel the sleeves, and I'm going to unravel the front. I'm going to keep the back on. And what I'm going to do is I'm not going to unravel the whole sleeves. I'm going to go back to somewhere up the top, and I'm going to change it so that it is I was going to say crew neck, but looking at how wide that neck is, it's probably more likely going to be a rounded neck or something. So what I'll do is I'll start increasing much quicker at the top and join it at the front. And then I think I'm going to do the same panel that's on the back at the front. So I'll increase to the same amount of stitches. So I'll take you along as I do that, but I wanted to show you before I unraveled it completely so that when I came back with progress, you would know what I'm talking about. All right. So part of my whole figuring things out for this year, I have brought back my little box, and I still have in here my papers, which are the 12 Cast Ons ideas that I didn't start this year. And I mentioned on Stash, Stats and Plans, but I'll say it here too. What I'm going to do is when I finish a 12 Cast On project from now on, so the 2 that I finished, I'm not counting. I've started plenty of things in January. But from now on, if I finish a 12 Cast Ons project from 2025 or 2026, I'm going to pull a new one, and I'm going to do a little mini vlog, cast off, cast on, where I take you through my day of finishing one and starting the next. And it'll be very much the same style as 12 Cast Ons vlogs. So if you like them, yay. And the other thing I've done is I have these little hexagons, and I've put the names of all my projects that I started up until the end of 12 Cast Ons 2026, so this year. I've put them on little things, little hexagons. These were little cutouts, things that popped out from a game that my son got for his birthday, and they just looked such good quality. I didn't want to throw them out. They're Ravensburger pieces, and so I, rather than throwing them out, decided to repurpose them into Lucky Dips. So I've got those in here, same as my papers, and it means that if I'm looking for a project-focused project, I can pull out one of these, and if I'm looking for a new project, I can pull out one of these. It just means I'm not, if I had them all on paper, I'd have to manage what was in the tub at any one time. This time they can both be in there, and I can choose. So I'm going to pick out 2 projects, one that I'm going to focus on for the next week and one that I'm going to focus on for the week after that. And then I will decide whether 1 week is enough time for me to be like, cool, I'm done, or whether I want to come back and do those same 2 projects again for the 2 second weeks of February. Does that make sense? So I'll pick out 2 projects. I may work 1 week on each and then pick out new projects, or I may work 1 week on each and then work on the first one again and the second one again. So I've worked 2 weeks on each throughout the entirety of February. That's my plan. So let's pick out some projects. What's that saying? Awesomer gossamer. That is great because that means that I will keep working on that. My husband will be very happy because that's my first project. My second project, is it that way? Alpine Bloom Tea. All right, this is a 12 cast ons from 2025. It was a spin to knit. So I've spun it all, I've started knitting it, and I've done just the teeniest bit of colour work. So I'm very excited that that will be coming out to get a bit more work. All right, so Awesomer Gossamer, which is very fortuitous, and then Alpine Bloom, which is super exciting. I actually started it for my birthday, 2025 is when I started knitting it. Okay, cool. The only other thing I have here to talk to you about is Ravelry. I have a lot of different groups on Ravelry, and I never quite know what I want to make and what I don't want to make. And when I do want to make something, I tend to go into my library and have a look at what I've already purchased. But it means that I have a whole lot of stuff that is kind of, it's not queued. I'm not planning to start it, but I would like to at some point. And it's just kind of in my favorites, mushed up with a whole lot of other things, which are more ideas and not things I want to start. So what I did was I went through and I actually put things onto a wish list, because I also use Steam, which is a gaming thing. And I have friends who use Steam, my husband does. And so one thing that I really like doing is going onto Steam if I'm not quite sure what to get him for something and I can buy him a game that's on his wish list. And so I was like, I'm going to do that for Ravelry, is I'm going to make a wish list, because if he wants to buy me something, then that's a really easy way for him to know what I'm actually interested in. Because if he was to go onto Ravelry and try and pick a pattern for me, if I hadn't been speaking about one, he would have no idea. So I thought that's a fun way. So I've done that. It wasn't actually that long, maybe an hour, going through all of my favorites lists. And then anything that I was like, yes, that's something I actually want to start at some point. Not right now, but at some point, I then copied that into a wish list in Ravelry. So I don't know if you've done that before. I never had, but super convenient, and I'm really glad I've done that now. It also means if I'm wanting to start something and I'm not quite sure, I have a curated list of things that I can go through. So the last thing I have is I have a giveaway. And what we're going to do, I know shipping at the moment can be really stressful for some people. I live in Poland in the EU. So buying stuff from the EU is really easy, but ever since I've moved here, if I buy something from outside the EU, I often have to pay, or even not buy, even if someone sends me something, I often have to pay tax on that. And that's something that I've gotten used to since living here. In Australia, I never had that. So I understand when you're getting used to new things and everything's up in the air, it can be really stressful. So what I want to do today, as a thank you for everyone who's been watching for a long time or just joined, thank you so much for being here. I want to do a giveaway, but it's a giveaway in 2 parts. If you would like to receive a parcel from Poland and you are willing to deal with any kind of tax things on your end that may come with that, then please comment down below, and in your comment include project bag. This is the project bag, but there are a couple of things inside it. One is, this is yarn. This is yarn that I hand dyed. I called it Zakopane. It's like the snow-covered mountain top with the blue sky and then the green trees. Zakopane is a town here in Poland, which is known in winter for its snow-covered mountains and beautiful ski runs. I've been there twice, not quite in winter, but still had snow around, and never been skiing. But I did dye this kind of inspired by Zakopane. So it's 75/25. It is sock yarn, but you don't have to use it for socks. So there's that with the project bag, which is why I thought a blue project bag would be nice. And there is one other treat in here. I have made a set of stitch markers. Now, I know that not everyone does 12 cast-ons, but I did do some stitch markers that are the same as the ones that I use for 12 cast-ons. These are handmade. We have a 3D printer, so I printed them. They're the same colours that I have. They have numbers 1 to 12. If you don't do 12 cast-ons, you can use them as row counters or what was the other thing? Like a decrease markers, whatever. There's plenty of things you can use numbered stitch markers for. But yeah, so I thought that would be really fun because so many people joined during 12 cast-ons. I thought that would be, yeah, a fun way to say thank you is to give away some stitch markers. I did link the file, the 3D print file, if you're wanting to make some yourself. But yeah, so this, the yarn, and the bag is the giveaway. If you are happy to receive a parcel from Poland and you are interested in this parcel, then comment below project bag and I will pick a winner. If you are stressed with international postage, you don't want to deal with that, then you can comment down below pattern and I will do a second draw for anyone who's interested in a pattern prize where I will buy you and give you a pattern on Ravelry up to, we'll go $10 US. So if you're interested in a prize, you'd like to win something but you don't want to win a parcel, then you can comment pattern and I will do a second draw for that. So yeah, thank you so much for joining me. I really enjoy doing these little podcasts. I really enjoy getting to know so many of you. As always, I would love to know what you've been making and what you've been working on, whether that's why you've been watching this episode or in general. Have you finished 12 cast-ons? If you're doing 12 cast-ons, if you're not doing 12 cast-ons, what are you doing? But yes, I will leave this open. I probably won't record again for another couple of weeks. So I'm going to say I'll leave this open until February 14. And then whenever I record again after that is when I will do the draw. But I'll say at least February 14th. So if I record again before then, I won't be doing the prize draw at that point. So once again, project bag if you want the parcel, pattern if you want the pattern. Hopefully that's clear. And I will always be announcing on the podcast out of my mouth who it is that won rather than doing anything in comments to say you've won, just to be clear. I think that is now everything. Thank you so much for another day, for another episode, for making it all the way through to the end, if you've come through to the end. Cool. I will see you next time. Bye.